With holidays in full swing, life can start feeling like you just got a part-time job on top of your full-time job. You've got more expectations, you've got things to buy, you've got plans to enact and actually make sure you show up. You've got pressures from yourself and from others. And really, unrealistic expectations are at an all-time high in December. Can I hear an amen? I've learned that unrealistic expectations, though, are a mom's rite of passage, a homeschool mom's rite of passage for sure. So today we're going to dive into 11 practical tips how homeschool moms can let go of unrealistic expectations. Whether you're feeling the holiday overwhelm this month or you just need a refresh on building realistic expectations for the new year, this conversation is for you. I believe this discussion is evergreen because letting go of perfectionism and learning alongside your kids and living alongside your kids, actually being present with your kids, is something that's worth tackling all year long. But speaking of the season, I've got something special for you just this month. In fact, just this first half of the month. It's the 12-day self-care challenge for homeschool moms. It's the perfect way for you to begin to incorporate time just for you, less than 15 minutes each day. It will be a refresh on taking care of you. It's not evergreen though. So this one's here for just the next 12 days. So you don't want to miss the chance to join it. Head over to my website, capturingthecharmedlife.com. And welcome to the Homeschool Mama Self-Care Podcast. I'm Teresa Wiedrich. If we have yet to meet, I am a graduated homeschool mom turned certified life coach and homeschool mentor. I was a homeschool mom for almost 2 decades. I learned that homeschooling is so much more than academics. It's a lifestyle of authenticity and purpose. By my fourth year, I started to see that homeschooling was not just about ticking off the boxes and finishing the out-of-the-box curriculum. And by year 8, I was homeschooling in a way that aligned with our family's values. It wasn't always easy. I was homeschooling in a way that aligned with our values, and that took some time to clarify what those values were, what really mattered to us. Every challenge taught me about me. Every challenge taught me more about myself, my needs, my kids' needs, and how to strengthen the relationships that matter most. Over time, I've discovered that homeschooling doesn't just shape our kids, it shapes us as parents, pushing us toward living more authentically. That transformation has been a gift, though I didn't see it that way at the time. And now I'm passionate about supporting other homeschool moms to transform their challenges into charms too. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, unsure, or stuck in your homeschool mom journey, you're not alone. Many homeschool moms have experienced what you're experiencing. I'm here to support you, to help you find clarity, to let go of what's not working, and create a life of intention and purpose that's uniquely yours. So if you want to join me on this journey, then you're welcome here at the Homeschool Mama Self-Care Podcast. A couple weeks ago, a homeschool mom asked on Threads, do you know any grab and go curriculum? And of course, I can say, I think all of it can be grab and go, depends on how you frame the curriculum. But I was going into my homeschool curriculum library because I've got one, even though I'm post homeschooling, only half of it's still there, but I've still got loads. And I was looking for the 5 in a row, which I didn't find. Highly recommended. Couldn't find it, think I sold it because it's one of my favorites. But I'm going through my homeschool library and I'm realizing, oh, wow, like all these drawing guides, these are so valuable. And I probably should pull them up for myself now. There's the Latina Christiana audio CDs that we listened to and dabbled in Latin, the Apologia, science textbooks, chemistry, physics, all the things, the beads, the paintbrushes, every last instrument and craft product. Boy, there was so much there. There is so much there. And it brings back a boatload of memories. I got a great education, unlike anything that I got in my school years. Homeschooling reminded me of the educational gaps that I didn't want to sustain for a lifetime. So I didn't I learned about Greek mythology and all sorts of different kinds of Shakespeare and World War history and fractions and all sorts of different kinds of math concepts, historical fiction, history in general, all sorts of different things that I did not imagine I would revisit. And boy, did I fill in a few gaps. There is an endless number of resources that could be a grab and go curriculum if people leaned into child inspired learning. But at this moment where I was in my closet, my homeschool curriculum library, I call it, I'm looking back and I'm seeing the journey that taught me that I actually learned to let go of unrealistic expectations because of homeschooling. It's not about checking every box. That's not the goal of homeschooling. It's not finishing the curriculum by a certain time. We learned to lean into learning about learning and learning about living. Those were more important than the actual educational tidbits that we learned along the way. If you give yourself 2 decades of this way of living and learning, and you're going to cover a whole lot of stuff, you're going to learn a whole bunch of different things, all the things that are required for learning, for life, for nurturing curiosities. We don't have to worry about covering everything today. I promise you'll get to it. If it matters, you'll get to it. In the meantime, enjoy it. Enjoy the crazy saturated ride of this homeschool mom life, because in the end, you're going to be grateful that you got to join your kiddos for this remarkable life called homeschooling. And you're going to see that you lived and learned alongside them and had a remarkably rich education yourself. Unrealistic expectations are a challenge for probably every homeschool parent out there, really every parent, but I'm speaking specifically to homeschool moms most of the time. This discussion about unrealistic expectations reminded me of a coaching relationship that I had with one mom who I'm going to call Rebecca. Not Rebecca, but we'll call her Rebecca. And she came to me overwhelmed by just the sheer volume of tasks that she felt she had to accomplish. Do you feel that pain? The things you're like, yeah, but I have to do this, or that has to happen. Well, she felt that way. And she had a few kids, like a few, plus a few more. So she's like many homeschool moms, though. She represents the energy of a lot of homeschool moms. She felt held back by her unrealistic expectations about how much she could actually get done in any given day, week, or year. She shared with me that she felt stuck in a schoolmaster mindset. You know, that little taskmaster that says, but I know you got lots done, but you didn't get enough. There's always more. She felt driven to complete every lesson. She felt stuck to her rigid schedule, and it never felt done. And it certainly didn't feel enough. So over the course of her years, her joy diminished. No surprise there. She was desperate at this point to feel more relaxed and at ease in her homeschool approach, because she knew that even though this was the way that seemed like it should probably be right, it really didn't feel right. So Rebecca and I worked together to create a 12-point action plan, to create an action plan that aligned with her values, with her vision for her homeschool. So on today's episode, I'm going to share with you the 12 steps. This is the 12-step program for homeschool moms. So step 1 is to clarify your vision. Rebecca began homeschooling with a lot of enthusiasm, as we often do, but not a clear vision for what she wanted it to look like. I've been there. In fact, I recall at a homeschool co-op or a homeschool convention at one point where a mom, a more veteran mom, shared that you need to create a vision. And I thought to myself, I don't got no time for making a vision for my homeschool. So no, I'm not gonna. And I didn't. And then, if you don't know my story, then you can check it out up here. There's a reason I'm here. My burnout prevention plan includes creating a vision, even if it's going to shift and change over the next 3 months, which it probably will, or 6 years or 12 years, which it's guaranteed to. You need to have some vision, because if you don't have a vision, the people perish. or something. So instead, Rebecca did what most of us do. She just barreled through the days, checking off a to-do list, trying to complete every activity in her prepackaged curriculum because that's what she thought everyone else was doing. And without a guiding purpose, she just felt overwhelmed, didn't have a lot of space to do anything else, but definitely felt the repeated experience of, but this isn't enough. What I'm doing, maybe I'm doing a lot, but it's still not enough. So Rebecca and I worked together to pause and revisit why she was even doing this homeschool thing, to explore her deepest values and her hopes, her vision for her homeschool life. So if you haven't done this one thing, you have not yet written down what your vision of homeschooling looks like, what you value in your homeschooling, stop this video right now, grab your journal, and write down how you anticipate, hope, desire this homeschool thing to go. And then you can later ask, is that realistic? Revisit and refine your homeschool vision intentionally and regularly. Write down your reasons for homeschooling and the core values that are guiding your decision. Let them be your daily reminder by sticking them inside your journal. If you're not journaling yet, stick around because you will be. Or put it on your mirror and remind yourself why you're even doing this thing. Okay, so step 2 is to prioritize relationships over academics. At the end of your homeschool days and your full-time motherhood role, you're not going to be thinking that you should have accomplished more learning activities. I mean, there might be some things that you wish you did with the kids, but you're not going to tell yourself that you just didn't do enough. What you might do is wonder why you didn't slow down and enjoy your moments more. Ask me how I know. If you can dedicate regular time for one-on-one connection moments with each child separately, not like each child separately once a day, that's not realistic. And probably it's not even each child one-on-one time once a week. That might not even be realistic. Maybe your goal is whatever seems real to you, but make the goal one-on-one connection moments. And if you need more ideas on how to create more one-on-one moments, then head over to last week's episode about fostering connections with your kids. I've got a whole load of ideas there. So it could be anything like asking your child what they'd like to do to play with you in their room on a Friday afternoon. Or maybe they can join you in groceries and choose their own crackers or their own granola bars, or choose the cereal of the week. Maybe they can join you, if they're an older teenager, they can join you on a Wednesday night to watch a movie, and then you can do a literary analysis of that and include that as part of your homeschool, or just go out for fun just because. The intention is to create that time, especially with each of your kids, and to do it on repeat, because prioritizing relationships over academics will never be a regret that you have one day. If you're not already doing this, step 3 is to lean in to more flexible routines or a more flexible approach to your homeschooling. If you're someone that loves a rigid schedule and you're color coding it like I did, then you might want to lean in to incorporating some more flexible approaches to your routine. You could start your day with the kids on the sofa with a read aloud, ease into the day. And I mean, just like a side note here, if you can get a morning routine and your own morning reading before the kids even wake up, that'll create margins for you that will feel so much better. Of course, I know when you have little ones that that is even more challenging to do, but just remember, little ones grow up. And when they're in a homeschool home, they grow up alongside you and assume that you're always available. So you want to incorporate the practices of separate time, alone time, like your morning routine. But assuming that you've got a morning routine and you are starting your day doing something fun like cuddling on the sofa with a read aloud, just to ease into your rigid schedule, you could also divide your day into broad time blocks. So to decrease that rigidity, you could actually imagine that there's different times during the day that you do different things. Some days it will be so, and some days it will not. But your goal is to incorporate things that matter to you. So in the morning, you could tell yourself, this is morning learning time. In afternoon, we're having quiet time. Or maybe there's a certain time in the afternoon you do a project time. Maybe there's extracurriculars that you know you're going to incorporate. You decide when that is. The beauty of homeschooling is you can do it during the day if you can get a piano teacher or someone to accommodate, and you don't have to do it after school. Or maybe you want to do it after all the kids are out. Participate in something that school kids are doing as well. Maybe you want to include time to be outdoors. Whatever matters to you, include it in broad time blocks. The third thing you can do is to begin each day with one or two key activities that really matter to you. So you definitely include those things at least 2 or 3 times a week with almost consistent regularity if you know that those are the things you will almost always do. The fourth thing you can do is let your kids choose the order of the activities for part of your day, or maybe just do that in January and February when things start to get a little more boring. Let them choose what they're going to do in what order. That gives them more ownership over their days. The fifth thing you can do is to build in margins for breaks. Instead of assuming that you're going right to the next activity, just know that it's not just the kids that need transition time. We do too. We need time and space to get to the next activity and to remember what it is that we need to bring and just to feel at ease instead of pressured to do the next thing right away. The sixth thing you can do is to assign general themes to each day. So maybe you want to include or suggest that one day is a reading day, or one day is an art day. Maybe one day is a field trip day. Maybe Tuesdays and Thursdays are history reading days, and Monday and Wednesdays are science days. Assigning general themes might help you to ease up and say, you don't have to do this thing every day, but you're generally going to do certain things on certain days. Or the seventh idea is to establish a consistent anchor routine, like morning circle time. Assume that that happens most days. And when the kids get older, you can call it, I called it announcements, or literary hour. That sounds more teenagery. So morning circle time, or after lunch, you can do a family walk with the dog. Whatever really matters for your family, your interests, and the amount of energy you have, just practice it for a week, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, and then see, does this work? Because it doesn't have to stay just because you wrote it down. You can shift and you can learn from what you practiced before and shift it again. Your goal is to do a routine reset. The fourth thing that Rebecca and I did was to redefine her version of success. So she created a values list of what really mattered to her. And like it could be fostering curiosity, or it could be building connections. It could be developing a specific aptitude. It could be frivolous fun if you're a fun mom. Whatever value, whatever thing really matters to you, that's your rubric. You are going to compare what you're actually doing with the rubric of your values, whatever your values are. This is how you'll know you've succeeded. Did you achieve the value? That's the goal. So use it to measure success rather than focusing solely on what everybody else is doing. And maybe what everybody else is doing does measure their success. Great. But if you're doing it based on what other people are thinking or how they value, then you're not really asking yourself what matters to you. So ask yourself, what matters to you? What's your version of success for your kids? Ask yourself, what is an education anyways? What's the point of it? Since I studied Latin just a little bit, the root word of education is educato, which means to raise up. And I always ask, to raise up what? What are we raising up in an education? Are we raising up the curriculum, 180 days of instructional time, or are we raising up a specific child right in front of us? You get to decide what an education really is and how to accomplish it, and that is your rubric for success. Rebecca was not accustomed to having fun in her homeschool. If you relate, consider intentionally integrating fun Even if you have a hard time switching gears from serious mom to fun mom, consider that this thing called fun is probably one of the reasons you want to be doing this thing. Trying to do 2 decades of hard work. I mean, lots of people do. Don't have to. You can enjoy your homeschool journey. So incorporate more games if you haven't already. Nature walks, read alouds, creative projects that matter to you. Make your learning, or at least aspire to moving, leaning in to fun. You can organize 100-day celebrations. When we began our homeschool days, our formal homeschool routine, which would be typically for us somewhere between mid-September to mid-October after we were finished our travel experience in the fall. We did that for many years. We would start to check off a calendar toward 100 days. And when we got to the 100th day, we would have a celebration. We would have fun. Then we'd also have not back to school picnics, which we'd celebrate with a lot of other homeschool families. We would do literature-based themed birthday events. My favorite, Little Women. Just decide how you're going to have fun. At the very least, plan an activity for Fun Friday. I still do that. I'm still doing that. It's a great way to balance out and just, also have fun. So step 6 is to plan for breaks if you want to know how to really counter your unrealistic expectations. Just implement short, intentional breaks throughout the day for everybody. So, based on their age, based on their engagement and their attention, consider 25 to 45 minutes of focused work, followed by 10 to 15 minutes of play or stretching or outdoor time or quiet time. That's entirely dependent on the specific child in front of you. I could easily do a few hours writing consecutively. I've built up that resilience or that ability to focus like that. Most kids don't do that, but most kids aren't the same. So watch the child in front of you and how attentive and intentional they can be about focusing their work. Then pay attention to that and make sure they've got lots of breaks. Assume that lunch is a hard break. Whatever you could do before that time is golden, but not required to finish afterward. I have been guilty of this, and I know that many homeschool moms share with me that they just want their child to do the thing, whatever they put in front of them, and said, you need to do this thing before we go outside, or before we go to the extracurricular, before we go see a friend. And I would encourage you to just consider that if a child is having a challenge not being able to do the thing quickly, there's probably a reason. That might not just be because they don't like it. Maybe they're challenged by something in it. Maybe you're not seeing their area of learning challenge in that activity. Maybe there's a relational challenge between you and that child. And so when you require or request them to do something, they're pushing back. And all of that to say, it would be worth exploring what's going on there rather than telling yourself this thing is going to happen. Because at the end of the day, if they got it done, it didn't mean they learned the thing, but it does mean that you created a relational gap or a disconnect between you and the kiddo. And if you're not able to spend 3 hours working on a worksheet, neither are they. So after lunch, maybe consider that to be a hard break until you move into the next thing that you plan together or you have in your routine. For years, I included a quiet afternoon time where we would either be together and listen to a Spotify playlist, specifically something that came from, I don't know, movie themes. They're amazing. It's an amazing backdrop for reading, quiet reading time. And you get really absorbed in that. So grab a cup of tea or a latte or something and sit together in the great room and just enjoy quiet time. Or maybe the kids are not quite old enough for that yet, but you can do a read aloud in the afternoon and you can practice being quiet together. Or maybe the kids are old enough that they want to go to their own rooms and do their own quiet thing. It's useful obviously for you, so you're getting those margins, that quiet space where you can think 2 thoughts in a row, and then also it's useful for each of your kids because they need a break from each other too at times, and so this is useful for them too. And when dinner prep is about to begin, or someone, whether it's a child or maybe your partner is coming home, or maybe your partner is joining you together to do dinner prep, then assume that that might be a nice time to say to the kids, okay, 10 minutes. I'd love everybody's help to just pick stuff up around the house or head outside to play after those 10 minutes. It's a nice place or space to pause and breathe. So, step 7 was to address attitudes toward learning. So, when I had a conversation with Rebecca, as I do with all the moms that I have conversations with, there's always a discussion about releasing unhelpful mindsets around learning. Unhelpful, I call it, because we create these ideas around what an education really is and what learning really means and how many things need to be accomplished and endless possible discussion points that people uh, parents just have these unrealistic expectations about what is accomplishable. New word. So when we address attitudes toward learning, when we actually get clear on what people's ideas are on learning and how kids learn and what an education really is, then we can say, you know what, the very least, we know this one thing. The goal is for the specific child in front of you to grow up and to be proficient and capable to function in an adult society. You add your thoughts. I'd love to hear how you define what an education is. That's not my definition, but I do think at the very base, understanding our goal is to enable a specific human to grow up to do something in the adult world. So we want to make our lessons child-centered. The goal is to engage the child right in front of you. So who is your kiddo? Ask your kiddo what they'd like to explore. Learn how they learn. Maybe they like being with other kids while they're learning. Maybe they don't. Maybe they like reading with books. Maybe they like doing all the different things at different times. Give them choices. Give them loads and loads and loads of choices and get clear on who they really are, how long they like to be engaged in something, what they might like to be engaged in. Assume that you're going to shift your focus toward curiosity-driven learning instead of rigidly sticking to perhaps your original plans or the curriculum plans, the boxed plans. Actually look at the child in front of you and say, okay, what would be your natural interest? Or how could we, even if there's something that you feel compelled that this thing has to be discussed, you have to have this conversation, you have to teach them this thing, how can you do it in a way that would enable them to stay more engaged? What could you do? Shifting how you homeschool takes a lot of intention in the beginning, and as time goes by, you realize, you know, this actually works better. My kids are more engaged. It's less pushback from the kids. It's much more fun. You become more flexible, you become more realistic, and you become more persistent in the things that matter, your values, your vision, your intentions towards your kids, the connection times with your kids. Express your perspectives or your attitudes toward learning. This will go a long way in decreasing your unrealistic expectations in your home. Step 8 is equally a challenging one. In fact, I would suggest to you that this one is more of a discussion where you and I would need to have a conversation about why this is a challenge for you in the first place, because there's layers upon layers of reasons why we want to do this perfectly. So I would say step 8 is to let go of perfectionism, which no one's going to do perfectly. But we can lean in to imperfection. Imperfection, we can allow for it. We can be accepting of it. We can challenge our inner schoolmaster, just as Rebecca did, and know that there isn't one right way to homeschool. There's not one right way to parent. There's not one right way to do very many things. We can practice a growth mindset and think of mistakes as learning opportunities, just like our kids are learning. various things. We're going to look at the mistakes and say, you know what? Maybe it's a way for me to understand that there's just not one right way to you fill in the blank. And as we practice doing that, accepting that our mistakes are learning opportunities, it doesn't feel like a mistake. It doesn't feel like a failure. It feels like it's part of a learning process of being a human, which it is. For both children and parents, it is. You can recalculate your expectations. Every day won't be perfect. Sometimes some seasons of family life feel remarkably imperfect. Welcome to family life. Instead, you can celebrate the small wins. In my Confident Homeschool Mom Collective every Friday, I ask moms, what are your small wins this past week? Sometimes they're great big wins, but sometimes they're small wins. And we want to be able to focus on the things that are going right, not on the things that aren't. Certainly, I encourage you to let go of comparison. That was a conversation that I had with Rebecca about not looking to see what the other moms in the homeschool co-op are doing and whether or not you should also include that in your home, because everybody is unique. Our specific values for education, our personal values are different than the other people around us. And our kids are certainly different than the other people around us. So how are we comparing fingerprints with other people's fingerprints? We're all as unique as our fingerprints. So our homeschools are going to be just as unique. You couldn't do or be what other people are anyway. You were meant to be you. So just you do you. One of the ways that I learned to do this you do you thing is actually by practicing self-compassion. To look at yourself and say, okay, so something didn't go right. It didn't happen the way that I wanted to, and I'm sorry about that. Maybe I'm saying sorry to me. Maybe I'm saying sorry to somebody else. A variety of challenges happen in the homeschool family life, and it's important to remember that it's not just your family that's going to have imperfections. Every family does, but also your family too. You can have imperfections. You don't want to just give grace to other people and say, you know what, it's totally fine. People make mistakes. Give yourself some grace. Just forgive yourself. And then you not do it for yourself. You can do it for you too. Practice doing it for you, because when you do, you're practicing it in front of your kids and teaching them how to do it too. Focus on the bigger picture. Homeschooling is a long-term effort, and I know that it's easy to see the frustration or the challenge or the imperfection of what's going on right here, right now. But I guarantee you that long term, even you are not going to say, gee, can't believe I didn't finish that chapter of The Trumpet and the Swan on February 12th, 2025. Like, was I even a homeschool mom? You won't remember. You're going to remember all the good things and even the hard things. You might actually discover that the hard things get transformed in your mind as these beautiful moments of teaching for you and your kids. So focus on the big picture. Focus on your educational values, your family values, learning opportunities, even when you fail. Striving for flawless execution shouldn't be your value. I'll say that. Because when you do, all you do is feel bad. You feel shamed. You feel less than, not good enough. And P.S., no one is meeting flawless execution in any area of their life, not homeschool life, not any life. One thing we can do is to also let go of this ideal homeschool image, whatever that is. In my day, I think when I first considered homeschooling, I didn't want to, straight up. I remember picking up a book on a lark when my three little girls were tiny, and I had an afternoon away, which almost never happened. And I remember going to this bookshop, which I would always do, still do, as a form of fun. And I picked up a book, and it said something like the homeschool option, how to know or how to decide whether it's right for you. And I remember thinking, it's definitely not right for me, because I don't wear jean jumpers and I am not weird. And I want my kids to be socialized, and I want some time for myself. Well, that one was a challenge. But the rest of them, I did not have to wear jean jumpers. And my stereotype of what a homeschool mom was, it wasn't, it didn't have to be anything. I mean, there's so many preconceived notions about what homeschooling means nowadays, like right now, and who might go into it and who might not, and for what reasons they might not. And actually, since 2020, there's a couple people that joined the homeschool ranks, a couple. In fact, I think it's at least in my very own province, and I know that it's similar in the United States, it's something like 6 or 7 times what it was. That's a really large jump, and that represents an awful lot of people. And if you can imagine a person in a certain form, they are possibly homeschooling right now. So there is no stereotype of a homeschooler anymore. There is no idealized homeschool version either, because no one is ideal. No one's perfect. No one is perfect, although I would be curious to hear what you'd say if you'd share in the comments below what you believe an idealized homeschool looks like. Embrace the beautiful messiness of this homeschool life, the learning, the mothering, the homeschooling. Here's your permission slip. Maybe write your own permission slip. Write yourself a note giving yourself permission to leave a lesson unfinished. Take a day off when you need it, to just also maybe enjoy your homeschool life. The ninth step in Rebecca's 12-step action plan to decrease her unrealistic expectations is to establish weekly reflections. This is what I was saying earlier about learning to journal. Spend enough time with me, and I will on repeat encourage you to journal. Not because I think you need pretty markers or a nice journal, although they are nice when you've journaled as many years as I have, but you can use a piece of paper, something that you used off the printer for some kiddo's unit study or something, and then just do the back side of that page and reuse the page. The goal isn't actually about you looking back and saying, okay, what did I write on December 20th to 2024? And that's not the point. The point is for you to get your thoughts and put them on paper and to get a little clearer as to what's really going on up here, what your thoughts really are, what your experience is, your emotional experience, or when you're having a relational challenge with someone, repeatedly discuss on paper or write the context of the conflict or the struggle and share the details. Learn more about how you're showing up in that relationship. Learn to understand the patterns of how you're relating with someone else. Journaling is a powerful tool of self-awareness to help you understand yourself. So I encourage you to dedicate maybe 10 minutes in the morning, or maybe it's a specific day every week just to review what's going on in your homeschool. You can celebrate what well, those small wins. You can identify the challenges you might want to overcome and determine how you're going to overcome them. And you can adjust your plans to develop that over the weeks as you continue to journal. If you haven't already been introduced to journaling, I have designed all sorts of journaling workbooks for you. So you can check them out over on Etsy. I've got a store on Etsy, Homeschool Mama Self-Care, or you can head over to the show notes to this episode about unrealistic expectations. I've got a regular daily journal. I've got a gratitude journal for this season. There's a wellness journal, a reimagine your homeschool journal, deschool your homeschool, a holiday building boundaries journal, an overcoming homeschool journal, and a bunch more. A you becoming you journal, that's the most recent one that we put together. Use journaling as a way of getting to know yourself, to really understand what's going on up here. Step 10 in Rebecca's action plan to overcome unrealistic expectations is to incorporate self-care. Spend time with you, getting to know you, addressing your human needs, just like you are helping to address every other human's need around you, the people in your family. They matter, but you matter too. So commit to something very small, but something consistent that helps you to do the things that help you take care of you. Step 11 is to manage your frustration proactively. So if there's anything more challenging in this homeschool mom life, I don't know what it is, but recognizing our emotional triggers, our reactivity, maybe recognizing that when things are especially disorganized, we are more likely to be out of sorts, or when siblings or kids are bickering, or more whining, or if there's 3 or 4 children whining at one time, or if they're fighting over the footwells in the minivan again, twice today. Maybe that's your trigger. I don't know what's more challenging than managing our frustrations proactively, but it is a learning opportunity for us as homeschool moms because we will get this opportunity at least every day. Can I hear an amen? Who knew? Once upon a time, someone said, "Don't get upset over spilled milk." But I had no idea that that much spilled milk would happen every single day. And the same thing can be said about sibling conflict and complaining and disorganization or disorder, untidiness, all the things. There's so much of it. Whatever it is, though, all of these things that might be causing you to feel repeatedly frustrated, get clear on what the trigger is. Get clear on what's frustrating you and determine to be proactive, to use it as a learning opportunity about you, perhaps about the relationship, and then get clear on what your next step could be. This is why I say to start with a day or your day with a 5-minute journaling practice to check in with yourself, or a mindfulness practice, a breathing technique, something to help you slow down and check in with yourself. Once a day at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, even during the recording of this video, I stopped to check in with myself because my reminder said to breathe. And so I stopped, put my hand on my heart, and took a long, deep breath, held it for a few beats, and exhaled even more slowly. And I did that and asked myself, how am I feeling? Why am I feeling what I'm feeling? What are the thoughts behind my feeling? Are they true? And if it's possible that this is a very triggering thought or is a very troubling thought, is there an alternate way of thinking? Could there be an alternate way of thinking? If I thought that way, that alternate way of thinking, would it influence how I felt? Would it influence how I showed up in something? Make just that brief 11 a.m. or whatever time you're most likely to be triggered or affected. Ask yourself, how am I feeling today? Your goal is to manage your frustration proactively. And really, I could create and have episodes upon episodes on this discussion alone. It's why I have a self-compassion group coaching program, because it is one of the most challenging elements of our homeschool mom life. So our final step is step 12, trying to have fun and build in gratitude. And if anything, I gained from Oprah, it was this gratitude practice back in the 80s when my mom was watching it every day at 5 p.m. And I joined her, and we would learn that gratitude practice, just by the mere act of acknowledging the things that we're grateful for, the things that we can see are beautiful or charmed or fun or connecting moments that we're really grateful for, they help us to reframe how we're seeing everything, to reframe the big picture. And over the course of time, we grow to appreciate that life is complicated. It's messy at times, it's hard at times, and sometimes it's just joyful and wonderful and perfect and just all the beautiful things, and it's all of those things all the time. It's got a little bit of all of that at some point in our life. But what we do when we reflect on our gratitudes is reframe how we see life, that we can actually look over the course of time and know it's actually messy, but it's also beautiful, or it's challenging, but it's also charmed. So consider recording regularly your gratitudes. If you'd like to learn more about how you can specifically overcome or address your unrealistic expectations, you're welcome to join me in a no obligation conversation to chat about how you might create a 12-step action plan to address your challenges. This homeschool life is an incredible, although imperfect journey. But when you let go of your unrealistic expectations, you allow yourself and your kids to enjoy the ride. So if you're like Rebecca and you know you're a rigid schoolmaster, but you want to shift from rigid schoolmaster to feeling more connected, a co-learning homeschool mom, you'll discover that homeschooling really does become more about the experiences you share than the content you cover. So if you follow this 12-point action plan, you can do what Rebecca did and build a more meaningful homeschool life. Build a homeschool environment that has more connection and more joy. Thanks for joining me today. Before we wrap up, I just want to remind you of a few opportunities to help you make this season even more enjoyable, more intentional. And it is the 12-day self-care challenge. The 12-day self-care challenge is your permission slip to prioritize you. Over the next 12 days, in less than 15 minutes a day, you're going to explore strategies to nurture you, to nurture the nurturer. These small moments of self-care can help move you through this busy season and really help you enjoy your homeschool mom life more. But they're going to stick with you long after the holidays. So head over to my website, capturingthecharmedlife.com, and sign up for the 12-day self-care challenge. And on Friday, December 27th, I want to invite you to the Re-envision 2025. It's a homeschool planning workshop to help you reignite your homeschool passion. So this will be a 90-minute session where we're going to reevaluate what you're doing in your homeschool life. Reimagine your vision, craft a plan to help you do January and February, the slump month, to help move you into the spring season of homeschooling with more intention and purpose. You'll hear more about this as the coming weeks go, but just remember that that season or that week right between Christmas, all the busyness of Christmas and Boxing Day, moving right into the New Year's when you're still in your PJs and you don't want to get organized to do anything, that's the week that I've chosen, because every week for the last decade and a half or 12 or 13 years, I have worked through a book by Sarah Susanka called The Not So Big Life, and I've incorporated it into my homeschool mom life to help me get clear on what's working, what isn't, how to create a homeschool life that works for my kids and for me, to clarify my why behind my homeschool before the next year begins, and make sure that the activities align with what I'm doing every day, and also practical ways to include you. It's going to be a deep dive into all these things, and it's going to be very relaxed. So make sure you're wearing yoga pants, because I will be. My fresh new ones, hopefully from Santa, if Canada Post comes back, and I will see you there. So join me at the Re-envision 2025 Homeschool Planning Workshop. As we head into the busyness of this holiday season, I hope you can take time for you to savor what matters most in your homeschool mom life. No matter what you value, I hope you get more of it in 2025. So I'm wishing you a happy holiday season filled with fun and play and curiosity and beautiful memories. I'll see you next time.